Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor and pleasure of catching up with co-founder and bassist for Tesla, songwriter, vocalist, Brian Wheat. Yay!
Hey, how you doing, man?
Doing great. We've got so much cool stuff to talk about, but as always, we like to go to the past. How did you get started in music and particularly on bass?
Well, the first record I ever can remember listening to that wasn't like one of those little kids records you have on and you put on your little kid record player was Revolver by the Beatles. And when I heard Paul McCartney's voice on Eleanor Rigby, it just spoke to me. So from that point on, I was enthralled with Paul McCartney. Mm-hmm. And long story short, I wanted to be a bass player like Paul McCartney. Nice. And that I was 6 or 7 then.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how I got started on the bass guitar, or wanting to be a bass guitar. First I had a guitar. My mom bought me a guitar when I was 12 when I broke my leg. But it was too difficult to learn, I thought, at the time. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a bass player like Paul McCartney, so I took the other 2 strings off. and that's how I started to actually try to learn how to play the bass. I'm still trying to learn today.
It's an ongoing process. Are you self-taught?
Yes.
Nice.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Very cool. And Tesla, which goes back decades and decades, how did that get started? How did you guys do that?
Well, when I was 18, I met Frank Hannon, who was 14 at the time. And from the time we met, we just connected on so many levels, and that was in 1981, and we've been together ever since. So it was just me and him shared the same vision of wanting to be quote-unquote rock stars or whatever it was, mm-hmm. you know, at the time, which we thought was real glamorous and all these things. And while our other friends were out stealing cars and getting into trouble with the law and stuff, we were in Frank's garage learning how to play and write songs, and that's how that started.
In addition to Paul McCartney, because certainly when you're working your own band and your sound, Tesla's sound, isn't Beatleish, where did you draw on inspiration for your music?
I was really into the Beatles and Wings as a kid, but when I actually started playing with all the guys I started first playing with and stuff, you know, that we were listening to a lot of hard rock. So you had AC/DC and UFO and Def Leppard and Aerosmith and Cheap Trick and Queen and Led Zeppelin. So I think a lot of influences on that side of my bass playing came from like Cliff Williams being a real fundamental kind of bass player, and Tom Peterson and Cheap Trick. Mm-hmm. You know, just laying it down and really, because I'm not a player like, say, Getty or Flea or somebody. I approach the bass a little bit differently. But then the melodic side, and when I actually do a little bit more moving around and stuff, comes from McCartney. Yeah. But guys like Cliff Williams and Tom Peterson, I thought, and still think to this day, really just laid it down, you know, and Rick Savage from Def Leppard, mm-hmm. same thing. So it came from those guys.
Nice. And you are also the owner of J Street Records.
J Street Entertainment, yeah. It's a company that has recording studio, a record label, management company, it's all encompassed and all that. Yeah.
And how did that come about? Is it a bit of a diversified portfolio there?
Just from doing it for so many years and being around other producers and engineers and managers and just kind of taking the good and the bad and kind of looking at it from a viewpoint of more like, you know, being an artist. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I work with an artist or a band, I come from not your typical manager or typical producer or typical engineer or typical mixer, because I do it all and I play bass and I write songs. So none of my managers played bass and wrote songs, played guitar and wrote songs, nor my producers, you know, except for Terry Thomas. He was a musician, the guy that did Bust a Nut and Forevermore. He was a musician. And of course, Phil Collin. But the first two guys, Thompson and Barbiero, they come from it from more of a New York scene, a mixer and a DJ thing. So, and I love those guys. They're great. I mean, what they did with us was unbelievable. But I just come from it from a whole different point of view. And so I wanted to kind of make a company that I could go to a young artist and say, look, I've done this for 40 years, okay? And you know, I've seen a lot of fuck ups, and I fucked up a lot. And I don't want you to fuck up. So, you know, listen from my mistakes and try to follow the path I'm going to try to show to you, because it's a better path. Trust me, I know. I fucked up a lot of different things. And that's how I learned. And I'm trying to save young artists the agony of learning the hard way.
Yeah. Well, there's countless stories of people that have blundered into learning the hard way. So I'm sure if anybody and everybody had at least a mentor or somebody that could turn to and go, hey, is this a good idea?
Yeah. I try to be objective and you know, with the people I manage and say, look, you know, trust me, this is not the way. Some of them get it, some don't. I don't work with too long.
I hear you.
You know, they're doing okay. So
there we go.
Out there. It's hard. This is a hard business. It's so much harder today to crack into the music industry than it was when I'm 60. I've been doing this almost 40 years. So the whole business has just changed radically. So I'm just trying to take, you know, going through all those changes and saying to the kid in 2023, listen, you know, this is what you got to do. And the main key to all of it is you got to write great songs.
Absolutely.
Songs will always prevail. Songs over being the greatest bass player or being the greatest singer. I mean, if you have great songs and drive, I think you can succeed. You know, because there are lots of people out there who had great songs and weren't great singers and performers, but the song always won. You know, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
So there's that. There's the whole matter of opinion. But like I tell somebody, if you're going to hire somebody to fly, you got a brand new 747, are you going to hire somebody that flew a Cessna or somebody that's flown in a 747 for a lot of years? So, you know, obviously I've been flying these planes metaphorically for a long time.
Well, and the business has changed so much. Back in the day, labels were controlling so much of what we were hearing. Radio was a big factor. Nowadays, with the internet, you know, you're right. If somebody can come up with a good song, if they can record it and get it out there, it goes viral.
It's still the key. You got to get it out there. It's got to be driven by something.
Yeah.
People, you know, and I tell these people, you know, people tell me, oh, radio's dead. No, radio's not dead. Radio's still the biggest mover. If you got a song on traditional rock radio all across the country, and you're in, you know, the top 10 of the radio playlist, people are gonna know who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Then they'll go to the internet and you'll get the Spotify and all that stuff. You know, it's just like there's so many bands every week putting out songs on Spotify. You never hear about them or know about them because they're just not presented in front of you. There's a lot of great music. So there's so many little things that contribute to making it happen, to being a big thing. You know, and trust me, there's no golden rule or anything. I'm just going off of, you know, the hard knocks that we had and the success we had as well, and saying, well, this worked for us, and it's still working today. You know, we're still selling tons of tickets and tons of T-shirts, and we've been a band for 38 years. So the one key to what I think is Tesla's, we had really good songs. Always. You know, that was the one thing that was always pounded into our heads by our managers and producers and our A&R people. And that's the one thing I'll pound into young artists' heads as well.
Nice.
You know? Well, if I do the TikTok video, you know, I can do this. Yeah, but if the song is shit, it's still shit. Okay? Because, you know, TikTok's here now, but where's that going to be in 5 years? I mean, we've seen so much stuff come and go from MySpace. Just look at MySpace in the beginning. Now you have Facebook, and now you have TikTok, and, you know, but radio's still there.
Yeah.
You see? You know, it's still there. And when people get in their cars and they turn on the radio, whether they're going to work or it's at lunch or they're coming home from work, that to me still drives it. So the key with all that is you got to have a really good song that's catchy.
Nice.
You know, or you got to be something. You know, listen, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Excuse the expression, but you know, that way still works.
Interesting. And I'd be remiss if we didn't talk, as you mentioned, Paul McCartney. You also play, to get your sound, you play on Hofner?
I play Hofners and Thunderbirds.
Nice.
So the Hofners I play on the kind of more softer melodic stuff, or you know, like the love song and the What You Give and the Way It Is and Signs and that kind of stuff. Two different approaches to the bass.
Gotcha.
Like you don't play the Hofner the same way you play a Gibson Thunderbird. You don't attack the strings, same nothing. The Hofner's got flat wounds, the Thunderbird's got round wounds. You know, both of the pick. I'm a pick player.
Okay.
99% of the time.
And what other elements of your gear to get your sound are you using? Are you using a lot of pedals or?
No. In the studio, I use a U5, Avalon U5 direct box.
Okay.
And then, you know, I'll reamp that with whatever amp fits the song at the particular, you know, instead of just I only use an SVT or I only use the B15. Well, no, I just use the DI first. Then as the song gets built and stuff, then I'll use whatever amp seems to fit the song in the direction it's going. But in the studio, I use U5, and live, I use Ampeg SVT classics.
Nice.
And U5s, both, for live.
Very cool.
Studio's one way, live's a different approach.
And do you have a preference in string brand?
I use Jim Dunlop strings.
Nice.
And Jim Dunlop picks. Yeah, I've used the picks since day one. Because I like the Cortex 73 milliliters. They don't, like if your hands, when I first was a kid, I used to use Fender mediums, but they're real slick and they fall out of your hand, especially if you sweat.
Yeah.
And I sweat. So the Dunlops were always good to grip. So, you know, I've used them Dunlop since 1986, 85.
Very cool. Well, the sound you get with a pick also is a more staccato, kind of attacking, sharp note kind of thing, which is...
Yeah, and you know, if I want that kind of warmer thing, like I said, I'll go to a Hofner. Because the Hofner's got an incredible amount of bottom end. It's got more bottom end than my Thunderbirds, which you wouldn't think it would, but it does. The Hofner bass is an incredible instrument. It's like, but you know, you're not going to play Edison's Medicine. You know, it's not. You're not going to get that grind. You're going to get this. I mean, you know, you just listen to McCartney. I have several basses in my studio, but those are the two basses I use live. In the studio, I record a lot with my Hofner, and I have a Warwick thumb bass, a 4-string and a 5-string that I got like in 1995. And I've had those forever. So those are always on the album. There might be the odd track where I'll play a jazz bass or Rickenbacker or a Kramer 8-string I got, you know, that I've had for years. I have tons of them, but mainly the Hofner and the Warwick for recording, and then live is the Hofner and the Thunderbirds. The first two Tesla records were recorded on Thunderbirds. 1976, you know, Thunderbirds. And those were stock.
Wow.
Now all my Thunderbirds have EMG pickups in them. The kind of, you know, humbucker bass pickups. And the Hofners are just stock. The German ones, not the Chinese ones. The handmade ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and as we look ahead, what's in the works for the future? What's in the plans?
You know, Tesla's entering probably, I don't know, the last part of our career. I mean, I'm 60. Jeff's going to be 65 in October. And people say to me, you know, how long do you think you're going to keep going? And I say, as long as Jeff can keep singing to the level he sings at. Because I don't want to be one of those bands out there that people, oh, the singer sounds like shit. And so I don't know how much is left. But I also manage Tesla. So when we book these tours and stuff, we do it very strategically. And it's to get the most mileage out of Jeff that we can. So instead of, running down the hill and taking on all the cows, one cow, we walk down the hill and we take care of them all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the theory with Tesla is, we're gonna make all the laps around the track. We might not go as fast as we used to, but we're still gonna do it.
Nice.
And it's working. And Jeff sounds amazing still to this day. That's really the key. I don't want to be one of those bands that has another singer. And plus, I think with Tesla, Jeff's vocal is so much identifiable part.
Indeed.
Right? I could sit there and say, "Oh, it's my bass." It's not my bass. No one gives a fuck about. If I'm playing bass, or I'd probably Frank's guitar, and Jeff, and But again, what makes Tesla that great band is those songs that we've wrote and put together for 40 years. And that's what people come to see still to this day. They want to hear those songs. And, as far as new material, we still do a few tracks a year. We made a record. The last record we made was Shock, which I think was in, 18 or 19? I don't know when it was. It was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, and that was with Phil Collin producing. So I think now we're doing the odd, couple of tracks a year, and just, not putting a bunch of pressure on us. It takes a lot out of us.
Yeah.
Make an album. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And really, I'd rather spend that effort and time playing concerts for people, because we don't know how long we're going to be able to do that. When we're old and we can't play concerts, we can go in the studio and still make music if we decide to.
Sure.
But for us, it's taken it to the stage. It's always been the stage, because people always say you're better live than your albums, because I don't think anyone's ever really quite captured us, what we do live. It's funny because you think about our biggest album was an acoustic live album, which sounded not very good. It's not a great sonically sounding record, but it had that spirit, and it caught the vibe of what it is Tesla does. Tesla's a real honest rock and roll band.
Gotcha.
So that's with Tesla. Now, I have two other bands. That I have a band called Soul Motor, which is kind of a darker, heavier band that when Tesla broke up in 95 for 5 years, I started this band Soul Motor. So there's a new Soul Motor record coming out. And then also I have this young kid in England named Alex that I started a band called Violet like the color violet, Free.
Okay.
And that's more of a melodic pop band.
Okay.
And on that thing, and if you listen to all three of them, all three separate bands, you'd say, well, you play bass different in each band. Well, it's because, it's very much designed for what the sound of that band is, right? Like with Tesla, we all get in a room and we play, and we start with pretty much a music track first, whether I write it or Frank writes it or Tommy wrote it or Dave, the guitar player's been this the last 14 years. And then Jeff writes lyrics to that. So that's a different kind of way of playing bass. And once that's kind of laid down, you gotta kind of stick to it, right? Now, something like Soul Motor, it starts with the bass. Like, that's me and a guy named Darren Wood. And that's just me with loops or a drum loop or something, and a bass, and a bass line that's predominant. And then he writes to that. Now, with Alex and Violet Free, Alex will come to me with an acoustic guitar and have a song, and I'll write it with him. And then when I lay the bass down to that, it's just acoustic and a vocal. So I'm playing with a vocal melody pretty much already locked. So it's three different ways of approaching how I play the bass for those three things. So there's a lot going on with me. It's like, what's next? And there's the production and the mixing and the management. I don't know how to retire. I won't retire or even sit still. I'm calling you now, or you call me, and I'm in Tuscany right now. And I try to come here 2 weeks, every 6 months to recharge.
Absolutely.
So I'm just off like 4 months of solid work with Tesla and all these other things. So I'm kind of burnt.
Yeah.
So I'm recharging. But it's hard for me not to do nothing. Like I've been here 24 hours and I'm already like, oh, I wish I had my Pro Tools ready here to talk about it. You know, and really, I just got to kind of force myself to sit out, enjoy the sunshine, and take in nature's beauty.
Indeed. Hopefully you'll have some nice recharging under the lovely Tuscan sun.
No, I will. Trust me. I've been coming here for 20 years, and it works like a champ.
Excellent.
And I'll go back, at the end of this month, and I'll be all refreshed, ready to tackle the second Vegas residency we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a couple more dates up the Oregon coast, and then I think we got one in Georgia, and then we're done till January. Next year, we did these reel-to-reel records in 2006, which were cover records that were, analog on tape and stuff. So we never put those out on vinyl. So that's coming out next year on vinyl.
Nice.
It was only on CD and digital. It was never vinyl. And then I think we're going to go in the studio in February and record a couple new Tesla songs and maybe a couple covers and play. I mean, that's, on the Tesla front, that's what we do. But I've got no like major record to say, oh, we got a new album coming out. No, I mean, we've made so many of them. It's hard. It's hard today, especially for a band like Tesla. I don't know what you want to call us, an 80s band or whatever you want to call us, whatever they call us. I don't care as long as they don't call us bastards. They call it hair band. They call us 80s band.
Yeah.
Radio's not that apt to play us anymore, nor play Aerosmith, nor play Def Leppard, or anyone from that time period, right? They're playing new things like Mammoth, which is great. I love Wolfgang's stuff. I think he's great, So, and I get that.
Yeah.
So I look, as far as like that creative thing and the younger fix, it's like working with younger artists, trying to help them get to a place where I got to, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that takes care of that, because I'm always writing songs and producing and mixing and stuff. And quite honestly, I don't think of myself as a great bass player. I tell people there are bass players and there are people who play the bass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I play the bass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a bass player, right? I'm not that precious about it. On the 8th day, God created Paul McCartney. We're talking about bass players. It goes McCartney, James Jackson, and then I don't care.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, those two guys for me. I mean, there's loads of amazing bass players. I'll never be compared to Flea or Geddy Lee or Billy Sheehan or those kind of. Then there are guys, like I said, like Cliff Williams, that just steady as a rock. You know what I mean? So I'm just not that precious about my bass playing. I mean, I can play.
Yeah, obviously.
I've been doing it 40 years. I think I've actually gotten a lot better in the last 10.
Wow.
For whatever reason, just maybe like, And I tell people, too, that Frank Hannon really taught me how to play the bass. Because Frank he was so good at such an early age
Mm-hmm.
that I had to, he was up here, I was up here. I had to rise up to be able to play with him, you see. And he was patient, and he taught me. And, we're like this.
Yeah.
We might argue like, brothers, and we rarely, to be quite honest, we rarely ever argue. But we might butt heads or have disagreements or whatever, but I really got to give him the credit, because I wouldn't be the musician I am if it wasn't for him. Now, he'll tell you, yeah, that's true, but Brian is the guy that always had the drive, right? Like, what's my role in Tesla? I drive. I'm like, come on, guys, let's do this. We can do this. I'm thinking from up here.
Yeah.
Maybe they're down here, and Frank's such this amazing musician, and Jeff's got this God-given voice.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm up here thinking about tours and things that you can do and all this stuff, and keeping us together and not fighting and splintering off. I mean, there's still 3 of the original guys after 40 years, and Troy just retired last year, and Tommy's doing well. I'm friends with him again, and he's doing good for himself. So I'm happy to see that.
Good.
And, you know, we have Dave since 2006. So it's tough to keep a band together. We've been together with each other longer than we have wives. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell you, you know, it's just a deal we made, you know, to stick it out, stick out all the bullshit, the good times, the bad times. And that's the thing that I'm really most proud of with Tessa is we survived all that shit.
Absolutely.
You know, we survived breaking up. We survived one guy, having major problems and had to leave. And, you know, we survived being, you know, the darlings of AOR radio and not. And we survived grunge and not. You know, we're still sitting here.
Yeah.
Me, Frank, and Jeff been together since 1983, so it's 40 years.
Yeah.
And we're still, you know, we still look at each other. And when we get on the stage, all the bullshit, all the shit's just gone. That hour and a half, it's just like no one can really get to us. Then the rest of the day, we're bored and we go crazy and drive each other nuts.
Isn't that the way it works? So I guess the key thing, if people want to stay on top of what you're doing, they should go to TeslaTheBand.com.
Yeah, or the Facebook.
All social media.
Facebook, or Instagram, you know. I mean, we got a pretty good social media presence now that we do. You know, it's all there. I mean, you know, we're still real active. This year, I think we'll play 65 shows.
Wow. So,
you know, a couple years ago, we were doing 110 shows a year. And, you know, we're not kids anymore.
I hear you.
We stay pretty busy.
Excellent. Well, Brian, we appreciate you taking time from your relaxing Tuscan villa to share your story with us and this information. Folks, you've seen him here, Brian Wheat, on Bass Musician Magazine.
Come and see us in Vegas. That's coming up September, I think, what's the 29th through October 7th. Because that's going to be fun. Because we don't do the exact same set every night. We change it up a lot. Because we got a pretty deep catalog.
Absolutely.
So you'll always hear those hits that, you know, you think you're going to hear. You ain't going to get away without playing Little Susie or Signs or What You Give or Love Song or Modern Day Cowboy or Heaven's Trail. But then there's all these other songs that come in and out of the sets. So, you know, come to Vegas. It's been real fun. You know, I didn't think I was going to like it at first. I didn't think, this is going to be kind of weird. But, you know, it's real fun. So
nice.
Get a chance, come out.
There you go. Thanks, Brian. Let you go.